A look at the drop-off in development of pitching in the Cardinals organization and a peek into the future with some names you may or may not be familiar with yet. This is Locked on Cardinals.
You are Locked on Cardinals, your daily St. Louis Cardinals podcast, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, Cardinals fans. I'm JD Haffern, and I'm a national radio sports anchor, born and raised in the Lou and a lifetime Cardinals fan. And I'm your host for Locked on Cardinals, part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Follow me on Twitter X at JD Sports Radio. You can follow the podcast at LO_Cardinals. We want to thank those of you who make Locked on Cardinals your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find us on YouTube. If you want to stop by, get the visual aspect of this show, we'd love to have you. Like, subscribe, comment. That way you're interacting with us. Hit the notification button so you know when new episodes are posted. This is a show serving Cardinal Nation and giving the best fans in baseball all of the info about the birds on the bat. Today's episode being brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. So when discussing how the Cardinals can get back to an elite level, because that's what we want to be at the top of the mountain. We don't want to be sitting down here in the poop that's left over. That's no fun. One thing we have to bring up is people need to understand that the quick fix plan of buying the most expensive free agents, as fun as that may be, because shopping is fun, let's be honest, it's not a sustainable way to do business when you are a team like the Cardinals, okay? They're not going to be able to outbid teams like the Dodgers, the Mets, the Yankees, the Phillies, all the normal suspects there, the usual suspects. If they wanted to spend the money, apparently they can, because obviously the owner is a billionaire, but that's not what they do, okay? They're not going to get into a bidding war with the big guys for the tippity-top free agents. As frustrating as that is, it's something that we just have to accept, okay? It is what it is. They've proven it time and time again. It's not the way they are wanting to run their franchise, and it's not their business model. It's not how they do it, okay? So until new ownership comes along at some point, don't expect that to change. I don't know why you would. They made signings this year on 3 pitchers. 2 of them are 1-year deals that could become 2-year deals. And the other, which is their big move, Sonny Gray, was a 3-year deal that could become 4. That's all they've done. And if you're not willing to go to that next level of contracts, if you're not willing to go to the 6, 7 to 10 years. I mean, we're talking 12 and 13 with some of these guys now that these other franchises are willing to dole out. Then the only way to stay in the game is by developing your own players in your organization. It's the only way to stay alive. You got to make smart trades as well. Obviously, that's a key aspect to it. You don't want to continue overpaying for older guys who are declining. You want to ship them out before they get to that point and get good young guys in return, okay? It's how teams like the Tampa Bay Rays continue to maintain their level of play year in and year out. The Diamondbacks this year. Take, for example, the Reds in the Central Division, something closer to home here in our own division. Just had their big turnaround this past year with guys that they have drafted and they have developed or they have traded for. Elly De La Cruz, obviously an immense talent, international signing, but they've developed him over the last couple of years. Matt McClain, drafted and developed. Hunter Green, Nick Lodolo, Andrew Abbott of the pitchers, all drafted and developed as pitchers in their organization. Now, granted, the Reds have not been very good, so they've gotten a lot of higher draft picks, which helps. But you still got to be able to develop those guys. You can take guys. I mean, they've had Nick Senzel. They took him number 2 overall. Didn't work out so well. He didn't develop. But they've been able to do it with some of these other guys. They've made smart deals by moving a veteran like Tyler Mahle to the Twins, which landed them Spencer Steer and Christian Encarnacion Strand, guys who then worked their way up in the system and are now huge pieces of their team moving forward. Like especially in the case of Spencer Steer last year, quietly hits 271, 23 home runs, 86 RBIs, and 15 stolen bases. And he plays first, third, and outfield. Alexis Diaz, brother of Edwin, was a 12th round pick. All-star last year, 37 saves. That's how you compete with the big market teams. It's not that you have to go beat them in free agency, because that's going to be very difficult to do. They have no salary limitations. They can go buy whatever they want. You have to be able to draft and develop at an elite level and then sprinkle in some strong signings and some good trades. It's just the way it's got to be done. The idea that the Dodgers just bought themselves a championship, it's the same narrative that we had for the Mets last year. We were like, oh my gosh, how are we going to beat the Mets now? Look who they got. They just went out and got Verlander and Scherzer, and they're spending all this money on everybody. Didn't turn around so great for them. Not at all. Ended up really bad for the Mets. The Dodgers' chances at a title are obviously much better because of the moves they've made for Ohtani, Yamamoto, and Glasnow. I'm not saying that they aren't. Don't get me wrong there. I'm not saying that this is not to blow sunshine up your butts and tell you that what the Cardinals are doing is the best way to go about doing things. I'm not saying that. I'm just telling you that there is still a way to compete for a championship without spending over $1 billion on free agents. You could still do it, but it all starts in your minor leagues and with your ability to draft and develop. And the Cardinals drop off at the major league level absolutely coincides with their inability to develop any young pitching. I think offensively, they've done pretty good. You're seeing Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn, Lars Nootbaar, Tommy Edman, Brendan Donovan, Dylan Carlson. Although he's been a disappointment the last couple of seasons, he's still a major league player. There's some... It's just they've been able to pull that off, okay? That isn't where the problem is. The pitching development has just not been there. It hasn't. And there have been a lot of injuries. Again, I don't want to make excuses for the Cardinals because there are things that they have done wrong. They really have. But injuries are a problem too. They happen to all teams, but we're focused on the Cardinals here and why they're having issues right now. We can't predict the injuries and when they're going to happen, but they have led to the demise of guys who were supposed to be a big deal for this team. Guys like Alex Reyes, Jack Flaherty, Michael Wacha, Dakota Hudson. The Reyes, Flaherty, and Wacha situations were crippling for this franchise because you thought you had three ace-like guys that would lead your rotation for years to come, and the injuries just crushed that dream. Injuries have completely ruined Reyes' career, who was at one point the top right-handed pitching prospect in all of baseball. He's only made 7 career Major League starts. 7. 101 appearances, has an ERA plus of 142. When he's healthy, the guy was great, despite giving up the home run to Chris Taylor in the playoffs against the Dodgers. But he couldn't stay on the field. Wacha has bounced back the last couple of seasons, which is great to see. Sucks he didn't do it for the Cardinals. Flaherty still has a chance to do something with his career. He's still just 28 years old, but his stock was through the roof just a couple of years ago, and now he's inking one-year deals with the Tigers. I think that's what it was. What was it, a one-year deal? They've traded away names like Marco Gonzalez, swapped him for Tyler O'Neill, Rob Kaminsky for Brandon Moss, whom they ended up bringing back, actually, but he was a first-rounder that didn't pan out. Shelby Miller went to the Braves for Jason Hayward. Joe Kelly went to Boston for John Lackey. Austin Gomber went to the Rockies for Nolan Arenado. Luke Weaver went to the Diamondbacks for Goldschmidt. Sandy Alcantara, Zach Gallen for Marcell Ozuna. Johan Oviedo for Jose Quintana and Chris Stratton. Now, outside of the Marlins deal, I don't think anyone is all that upset with what the Cardinals got back in return for those guys, but they are moves that depleted the pitching depth in the organization. And then there's guys that just never became what the team or fans or anybody thought they would be. Like Carlos Martinez seemed like an ace, right? Didn't he? For a couple of years there, he was really darn good. And then he just disappeared into oblivion after some injuries and suspensions. The guy is still only 32 years old. Carlos Martinez is still only 32 years old, but he's done. Seth Blair, Jake Woodford, Junior Fernandez, Seth Elledge, Connor Thomas. Recognize some of these names? Didn't pan out. Now, after restocking with trades and drafts, you have the new crop of guys that we're supposed to believe in next. Matthew Liberatore, Zach Thompson, they're in the majors already, but guys like Tink Hintz, Cooper Jerpy, Takoa Roby, Gordy Graceffo, Sim Robertsa, Michael McGreevy, Ian Bedell, Zach Showalter, Ryan Fernandez. And, of course, you've got some position players that appear to have bright futures. Victor Scott, Chase Davis, Thomas Sajaci. So the Cardinals are where they are because they just haven't done a great job at developing the players over the last decade or so. They've had some bad injury luck, but they've also not done a great job. Let's be honest. So it's forced them to go out into free agency to go pay for guys. And now they can't keep up with the contract and the rates that these guys are getting paid. So that's where we are. That's the problem. But today I want to focus on some of the guys maybe you haven't heard about yet. Our friend of the show, Daniel Guerrero, STLtoday.com, just put out a piece on some prospects that you may not know about yet. So we're going to run through some of those. Plus, I'll give you some other names that I'm still intrigued by that are floating around in the Cardinals organization. We'll get into that next on Locked On Cardinals. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You know, right now, guys, new customers, you're getting the hookup. $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. Hard to beat that. $150 if your team wins. Okay, I'll take that. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, no better time to get in on the action. It's a very easy app to use. You've got all the sports going on right now except for baseball. You've got NHL, Blues, another victory last night. You've got the NBA, you've got football, NFL, and college bowl games are going on. Spreads, player props, all of that available to you. The over-unders. Jets at the Browns tonight. It's Thursday already this week. Jets at Browns tonight. Browns by 7.5 currently. At FanDuel, I already locked in my bet with the Browns earlier in the week, but the options are great for player prop bets as well. A guy I want you to look at. David Njoku, tight end for Cleveland, has been a monster since Joe Flacco took over at quarterback. His last 3 games, he's gotten 22 catches on 31 targets for 239 yards and 4 touchdowns at tight end. He's incredible. That's an average of 7.3 catches, 79.7 yards, and over a touchdown per game. Had him on my fantasy team. Dude was a beast. He's someone I definitely consider betting on in the player props. You know, Amari Cooper for the Browns coming off a record-setting day, has a heel injury, but he went off for 11 catches, 265, which was a Browns single-game record, 2 touchdowns. I haven't seen an update on whether or not he's playing tonight or not. Make sure he's playing, obviously, is an important thing, but he's another name to watch. So you can win big with these guys. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season with FanDuel, the official partner of the NFL. Once again, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows, which cover every league. You go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube, subscribe, do it now. It's the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. You won't regret it. And thank you for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. As always, leave your comments on YouTube as well as on Twitter X anytime you want. We always welcome your feedback here at Locked On Cardinals. So our guy, Daniel Guerrero, does awesome work over at STLtoday.com, and you can follow him on Twitter X at the Dan Guerrero. Just dropped a new article on some prospects that some may not be too familiar with. Some of you will recognize some of these names, and others might not know any of them at all, and some of you might know all of them. I mean, it depends on your type of love for prospects, which not everybody has, but it's good to keep you informed of some of the names that are coming up through the system and hopefully will have an impact on the team sooner rather than later. But I'm going to link his article in the description here. put it down in the show notes as well. So let's run through some of these. The first one should be a name. If you listen to this podcast very often, you should recognize this one. Andre Granillo, right-handed pitcher. This is a guy that I have been talking about a lot since last year, really, when we did these prospect shows last year. He's a guy that I constantly brought up because his numbers kept popping off the page at me. You know, the Cardinals have a need for bullpen help. This is a guy in the organization that's not a starter that we're hoping can contribute in the bullpen. He's not a starter, though, like say, a Zach Thompson or a Matthew Liberatore or a Gordon Graceffo. We think that those guys might have to do things in the bullpen for the Cardinals this year rather than in the starting rotation because they went out and signed some guys that normally stay healthy and get between 28, 30-something starts in a season. So you're hoping you get that again this year. Not a guarantee, obviously. Steven Matz is clearly the weak link in the rotation when it comes to being able to come out and pitch every fifth day. So guys like Thompson and Liberatore are probably going to be those sixth guys, those swingmen in the rotation this year. But Gordon Graceffo is a guy that was a top prospect in the organization who they think maybe he's better suited coming out of the bullpen. We'll have to wait and see. But Andre Granillo has been a bullpen arm this whole time. The whole time. We talked about him with Daniel on the show earlier this year, and Dan brings him up again in this article, and here's what Dan has to say about him. Since becoming a 14th round pick in 2021, the righty with a fastball that touches 97 miles per hour and a slider with some bite has a 4.09 ERA and 100, and I checked out this number here, 194 strikeouts in 138 and 2/3 innings. If that doesn't open your eyes, I don't know what does. Among Cardinals prospects with a minimum of 130 innings pitched since 2021, Granillo is second in strikeouts per nine at 12.59, strikeout rate at 32.2%. That's per FanGraphs. He is third in swinging strike rate at 17.2 in that same span. After leading the Texas League in saves with 14, while with Class AA Springfield, and then reaching Class AAA Memphis for the first time, the 23-year-old bookended his season by posting a 1.80 ERA in 8 outings during the Arizona Fall League. His performance in the finishing school for prospects included 14 Ks and 3 walks across 10 innings. Now, I'm guessing he'll get a look in spring training, that the Cardinals will take a look at him, see where he's at, likely to start the year at AAA. That's just my guess, where he did struggle a little bit in his brief time there. 9 appearances, 13 1/3 innings. He struck out 17, but he gave up 11 runs on 10 hits. He walked 13. Yikes. Allowed 2 home runs, but big dude, 6'4", 245. He's someone I'm very, very much interested in moving forward and hoping that he will have an impact on this team either this year coming up or hopefully the following season. Next up, Daniel brings up infielder Cesar Prieto, who was a part of the Flaherty deal to Baltimore, if you remember, along with Drew Rom and Zach Showalter coming back to the Cardinals. Here's what Daniel says about him. Prieto ended the regular season 6th in hits with 161 and with the 3rd lowest strikeout rate, which was 9.6, among the 221 players with 500 or more plate appearances this past minor league baseball season per FanGraphs. The 24-year-old native of Cuba produced a .323 batting average and a .367 on-base percentage in 123 games across 2 organizations. 96 of Prieto's games played came at Class AAA. Left-handed swinging utility player adds to the Cardinals' upper minors infield depth. Now, when looking at the Cardinals' depth up the middle, well, first off, looking at Prieto's numbers, nothing stands out where you're just like, oh my gosh, this guy's a star in the making. But when you look at the Cardinals' depth up the middle, we know we've got second base covered right now. Nolan Gorman, who I think should start dabbling at first base, by the way. This is just something I started thinking about recently. Like, why not? Why not teach him how to play first base sometimes? That way he can be available at another position as well. Just something to think about. Anyway, but at second base, Gorman, Brendan Donovan, Tommy Edman, former Gold Glover if you need him. At shortstop, you got Mason Wynn, who's expected to be the starter, right? But if Wynn falters, Edman is currently the only backup shortstop at the position available. So if Wynn falters, we hope he doesn't. We don't expect him to. But if he does, you want to be protected a little bit. Who else is playing shortstop? It seems like they want Tommy Edman in center field. From what Mo has said about the outfield during this offseason that he's picturing Newt, Edman, Walker as your starting outfield, and Carlson as the fourth guy. So having somebody like Cesar Prieto and Thomas Ajacci are guys that are depth at that position right now, which is important. Prieto also plays second and third base, so it's nice to have those type of guys. We know the Cardinals enjoy moving people around. Remember how they kept bringing Taylor Motter back? They DFA'd him like 17 times, but they kept bringing him back because he can do so much. He can play those positions, and he doesn't kill you defensively when he played them. It wasn't much offensively, but I can see Prieto being that kind of utility guy for him. It's nice to have those guys on the infield. So that's what he would be as far as the immediate future, at least in my opinion, because you're not moving anybody unless you start trading pieces away at some point. He wouldn't be a starter yet, but he'd be kind of that utility guy who can do a little bit of everything on the infield for you. We're going to jump into some other pitchers that he mentions. One of them is 6'7", 6'7". We're going to talk about it next on Locked On Cardinals. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. So go to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and subscribe to the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel. I don't know why I put a T in there. It's a channel. It's not a channel. All right, let's continue through STLtoday.com. Daniel Guerrero's list, which again, linked in the description and in the show notes, so you can go read it for yourself, because I'm not going to go through every single guy he brings up, but I'm going through some of the highlighted guys that I found interesting. But there's other guys on this list that you should go read about. Let's get to the one young guy, right-handed pitcher, Edwin Nunes. We talked about him with, I believe, with Guerrero, actually, because we were talking about him going to the Arizona Fall League. But a young flamethrower, ranked by MLB Pipeline as the Cardinals' number 21 prospect in their organization. Here's what Daniel has to say about him. 22-year-old found better command of his fastball that sometimes touches triple digits, and ended the year with a 3.39 ERA and 65 Ks in 63 and 2/3 innings over 41 relief outings in Class Low A and High A. He walked 30 batters for a 10.8% walk rate, but this is after, because it's an improvement, actually, after he walked 18.4% of the batters that he faced in his first two pro seasons. The Dominican Republic native received a promotion to Class AA for Springfield's playoff series, and then earned an invite to the Arizona Fall League. In a bullpen role this past fall, Nunes maintained a 2.53 ERA across 10 and 2/3 innings, notching 6 strikeouts and walking 4 batters. Again, bullpen depth is always needed. It's always needed. I'm not a guy who thinks that you should have to go pay a guy like Josh Hader whatever he's going to make. Like, I want to keep churning out bullpen dudes. I want to keep them coming. That would be my philosophy. It seems kind of like what the Cardinals are trying to do right now, that they've got all of these guys that they think could offer some serious upside. They're going to let it play out, find out who works and who doesn't. But that's why you need as many arms as possible. The more, the merrier, right? So, and if there's a spot that a young, hard-throwing pitcher can be impactful at right away, it's the bullpen. It's the bullpen. It takes a different kind of guy to be a starter. But in the bullpen, you just go out and throw, right? That's the idea. Unless you're a closer. I mean, I understand there's a mindset to it, to be in the bullpen and try to be available every day. I get that. I'm not trying to downgrade bullpens and bullpen pitchers. I'm just saying, like, I would think in the grand scheme of things, it's an easier thing to do as a young pitcher is to be a relief pitcher than it is to go into the starting rotation. That's what I'm trying to get across here. That's how we got there. Anyway, so you kind of have to make a decision on what this guy's going to be for Nunes, because Cardinals have been known to waffle back and forth. They did it with Jordan Hicks. Remember, he's a reliever, and then they started him, and then he's a reliever, and they're doing the same crap with Zach Thompson, which bent him all out of shape last year for a while. And we don't know what he's going to do this year. I guess he's going to be in the bullpen, but they got to make a decision on what they want to do with Nunes, starter or reliever. But it seems like at the moment, he's going to be a bullpen guy. And again, more the merrier in the pen, available for the pen. That's my philosophy. Now, here's a name that honestly I was not too familiar about. I'm glad Daniel brought this guy up. Right-handed pitcher, Zen Ho Lee. All right, Lin becomes the Cardinals' first amateur signee from Taiwan when he signed an international free agent contract this past July. 6'7". That's a tall man. Adam Wainwright, tall, 6'7". Lin regularly hits 95 with his fastball and can get up to 98. He displayed that velocity in his Class Low A debut as he collected 3 strikeouts in the first inning of a start for Palm Beach less than 2 weeks after signing with St. Louis. Lin played college baseball at the Chinese Culture University in Taipei, Taiwan. He made his stateside debut in the MLB Draft League in 2022 and returned to the same collegiate league this past summer before he inked the free agent deal. Over his first 6 outings in the Cardinal system, 22-year-old notched 21 strikeouts, 6.06 ERA. Not great, but he did that in over 16 1/3 innings. So, on paper, when I hear 6'7", 98 miles per hour, I don't know if you can see it on YouTube here. I'm drooling. Over that. 6'7", throws 98. Can they develop him? That's been the problem for the Cardinals. Yeah, his numbers look great, but can they develop him? A thing that they've had a serious problem with over the last few years. That's what remains to be seen. Size, velocity. He's still 22. So he has room to grow, to build the muscle and develop as a man. So very intriguing. Very intriguing. I'm going to definitely keep an eye on that guy. Once again, in case you don't know, Zen Ho Lee is his name. 6'7", out of Taiwan. All right. Guerrero also talks about in this article left-handed pitcher Quinn Matthews, who is the Cardinals' number 22 prospect. He talks about catcher Leonardo Bernal, who is the team's number 10 prospect, and outfielder Zach Levinson, who was taken in the 5th round this past draft. So here's what I need you to do. Click on the article, once again, in the description below and in the show notes. Check it out, and then give Daniel Guerrero a follow on Twitter X at the Dan Guerrero to hear about them. And he's always posting new stuff. So it's a very good follow if you're into prospects, along with the St. Louis Cardinals. Some other names on the prospect list that I'm personally keeping an eye on. I'm thinking more about the MLB pipeline list that they have posted. 20-year-old left-handed hitting outfielder Juan Bin Cho. He is ranked 13th in the organization. Very nice swing. I've seen a lot of video on him. Very nice swing from the left-handed side of the plate, which is there a lot of ugly left-handed swings out there? I've never seen really any of them, but he's got a nice one. Very good speed. Swiped 32 bags this year at A-ball in 105 appearances. Again, he's still growing at age 20. Right-handed pitcher Max Rajic had some solid numbers in A-ball with Palm Beach and Peoria. Combined went 9-6, but a 2.48 ERA in 23 starts. Not a big strikeout guy, but still, when you're a good pitcher, you're just a good pitcher. You don't always have to strike everybody out. It's nice. It makes life easier. And an obvious one is their first-round pick. Brought him up a little bit ago, Chase Davis, who shockingly, after getting drafted by the Cardinals and then going down to Palm Beach, hit 0 home runs. 0 in 104 at-bats, despite power being one of his best attributes. It's what he's known for. Power, really good running speed as a center fielder, has a cannon arm, like a cannon for an arm, but he's already 22. So I'm curious, and I say that because they just drafted him. It's not like they drafted him 3 years ago and now he's 22. Like, he's 22 now. So I'm curious to see how his first year in the minor leagues goes. But certainly somebody that we got to keep an eye on. I mean, first-round pick, 21st overall this past draft. Somebody that a lot of people thought would get drafted much earlier, was a big prospect coming out of high school in 2020. So Chase Davis, somebody very intriguing. So we'll see how he develops as well. But if there are some names that you want to know more about in the Cardinals organization or think we haven't covered enough, let me know in the comments, or who we should maybe have on the show at some point. I love talking to the prospects. Very cool dudes. The guys we've had so far. We've had Victor Scott on here. We've had Ian Bedell, Gordon Graceffo, among many others. Mike Antico. Would love to get more of them on here. So if you haven't seen those, go into past episodes, check them out. But if there's somebody else you want us to bring on, let me know in the comments or hit me up on Twitter X, and we'll see if we can get something done for you guys in the future. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Cardinals your first listen every day. If you haven't already, follow us on Twitter X at LO_Cardinals and at JD Sports Radio. Like, subscribe on YouTube. Help our channel and love for the Cardinals grow. You are the best fans in baseball for a reason. And I will see you next time on Locked On Cardinals.